The Xenoblade Chronicles series of video games is chock full of frankly brilliant characters that the fanbase simply can't sing the praises of enough, whether that be for their deeply moving and emotional backstories, their dynamics with other characters, or simply just their general presence. Pyra/Mithra, Shulk, Dunban, Zeke, Morag, Nia, Melia, Rex, Noah, Mio, Uni, and the villains. You can't forget the villains. Egil, En, Jin, Malos, you get the idea. They're very much a large part of the reason the game's stories are also so critically acclaimed. We care about what happens in these stories because it's happening to characters we care about. In short, this series legitimately has some of the best characters in fiction I've ever known, and in terms of most of my favourites, it seems that the fanbase largely agrees. There is very much a common consensus that characters like En, Melia and Mithra, for example, three of my personal favourites, are standouts. But, as is the focus of today's video, this is not always the case, and they're also not the characters you clicked on this video to hear me discuss either. No, there are a few other, less talked about individuals within these games I view as being woefully underrated within the larger fandom, with them also being some of my favourites across the entire series. Just who are they, and why are they worthy of more acclaim than they receive, I hear you asking? Well, let's get into it. The following are Xenoblade's most underrated characters. Adam is one of those characters whose greatness mostly doesn't stem from some insanely captivating or moving backstory, a standout development through the plot, or anything of the sort. No, his brilliance comes down to largely one thing alone: his endlessly charming personality. Part of the reason his temperament makes him such a standout character for me is how unexpected it is. Throughout the main story of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, we're shown only scattered glimpses into Adam's life and character. Pretty much all we know about the man is that he was Mithra's original driver who fought against Malos 500 years before the events of the game, and in all of them, he's portrayed as someone particularly serious, even solemn at times. We never see him let his guard down, drop this persona of a no-nonsense, almost mentor-type figure for Rex. Then, in opposition to all of this, Torna comes along and shows what this man was really like in his day. A total goofball, and it's awesome.
You're kidding. Oh man, you guys are the best. I haven't laughed this hard in ages.
Huh?
I really like you two.
He's just so much fun, man, and I honestly don't get why he doesn't get more love. His dynamics with the rest of the Torna crew are excellent, especially his regular banter with Mithra and teasing of the other characters. His VA too is superb, doing a great job at ensuring these scenes don't become awkward or cringy, as they perhaps could have done had they not been delivered properly. But I also love that he's never reduced to solely the comic relief role. As seen in the base game, when necessary, he's able to take on a more serious and sensitive side, and throughout all of these moments, his obvious kindness shines through. I don't know what else to say really, he's just a super cool guy and I adore him. While Adam's personality is the main reason I love him though, I feel I would be doing a disservice to his character if I argued that was the sole reason he's so great. While it's nothing crazy like the backstories and deeper meanings of characters like Mithra and Nia, he does have some more complexity than it may initially seem. What I'm talking about here is the flawed side of his character. As all fantastic characters are, after all, Adam is absolutely not perfect. His fear of Mithra's true power and subsequent inability to truly accept her are of course what I'm talking about. True, none of this comes from any place of deliberate antagonism on his part, and I also can't blame him for feeling this way. The Aegis's power is great, and if misused, can be terrible, as seen in Torna, but it is a slight stain on his otherwise spotless record as a great person. I want to reiterate, this is a good thing for his character. He, at times, especially near the DLC story's conclusion, shows an inability to put in the effort needed to truly understand and care for Mithra, and a naivete as to what her true feelings are. That's where Rex comes in. He's able to accept her fear and trauma in a way Adam was unable to. But I also love that, as seen in his interaction with the former at the Spirit Crucible Elpis, Adam is able to acknowledge and come to terms with these deficiencies. He's not totally ignorant of his flaws.
And I too was afraid. I feared the true power of the Aegis.
He displays a keen willingness to want to improve, to make up for his shortcomings, and for that, I just love him all the more. And he's also just pretty dang badass, let's be real. And that is why I view Adam Origo as one of Xenoblade's most underrated characters. Sticking with Xenoblade 2, I think most who have played the games would agree that this entry features the best villain lineup overall. But although antagonists like Jin and Malos deservedly get their praises sung time and time again, there is one other adversary that sadly often gets left out of these discussions. Of course, I'm talking about the diva herself, Just kidding, no, of course it's the Praetor of Indol, Amalthus. Although Amalthus completes the Trinity, no, not that one, or that one either for that matter, of the three main villains of Xenoblade 2, the ones whose stories are most interconnected and are by far the most important to the plot, Malos, Jin and Amalthus, as previously stated, he often doesn't receive the same amount of love as the former two, and personally I think that's wrong. Sure, maybe I don't think he's quite as good as Jin specifically, a serious contender for my favourite villain in fiction, but I would argue what we have here is still an exceptionally well written, captivating antagonist, one so inextricably tied to the main plot of the game it simply couldn't have occurred in the first place had he not been present. Here's why. What Amalthus represents, on the most fundamental level, is religious zealotry taken to its most terrifying extreme. He is a man who placed so much faith on and intertwined so much of his life with the assumption of the architect's existence that, when he receives no verification for his beliefs in return, it drives him insane. But how do we get here in the first place? Well, in one of the earliest scenes we get of Amalthus, we learn of the death of his mother at the hands of some bandits, and his subsequent brutal killing of the very same miscreants in a macabre act of revenge. A crime, might I remind you, committed by a literal child. It's no wonder that, later in life, he's a bit fucked up then. Another one of Amalthus's most pivotal character moments occurs chronologically later. Of course, I'm talking about the simply harrowing baby scene, an event that solidifies in Amalthus's heart the inability to ever trust humanity and the architect's complete lack of care for his creation. This frankly disturbing sequence shows us Amalthus bandaging up and helping a wounded soldier, a streak of charity he likely committed to attempt to convince himself humanity wasn't entirely without merit, and one unsuccessful, seen when he finds that same man that he had given a second chance of life, throwing it all away again as he robs and murders an innocent woman before going for her baby. Amalthus intervenes, and what he does next is horrifying.
Oh, Architect, is this the world that you intended?
What a line, man. Between the cinematography, writing, delivery, and the fucking haunting music. Bit of a tangent, but it's called Past from Far Distance, and is also one of the most underrated songs in the game in my opinion. This scene never fails to give me chills. It's the moment Amalthus begins to truly lose hope in mankind and the architect, and I don't think it could have possibly been executed better. Whenever people say Xenoblade 2 is light-hearted, or lacking in serious tones or themes, you just know they haven't watched this scene, man. These experiences, alongside others, gradually moulded and sculpted the Praetor into the man we are so familiar with. Therefore they, in turn, also acted as the basis of the inception of another member of Xenoblade 2's main trinity of villains, Malos. Malos almost acts as a physical manifestation of Amalthus's most deeply buried, darkest impulses, made real and tangible, and it's something that has disastrous consequences for the world. Through Malos, Amalthus effectively has an outlet to show the world his true feelings, to release his rage and, well, malice at the sheer cruelty of it all. It's brilliant stuff. Above it all, I just love Amalthus as a villain because he feels so incredibly realistic, even more than someone like Jin or Malos, whose respective existences and motivations, while great and somewhat relatable, are also so dependent upon the unique sci-fi mechanics at play in Allrest. People like Amalthus, however, really do exist, perhaps more than we might like to believe. People who have built so much of their character upon an unredeemed belief or faith system that, when they inevitably get nothing back in return, they become hollow, broken shells of who they once were. And that realism is, in my eyes, the most terrifying thing of all about Amalthus's character. And finally, we've arrived at the character I view as the most underrated in the entire series, and the one who inspired me to make this video in the first place. In case you couldn't tell from the thumbnail, Nael. Nael is an interesting character to pin down, because she's not really a villain, at least not in the way someone like Jin or En is. I never got the vibe, but we were supposed to legitimately be intimidated by her, like we were with the former two, with her instead acting as nothing more than a medium by which Future Redeem's true villain, Alpha, can enter the picture. No, she is simply a regular person, probably the most normal one on this list, truth be told, whose ambitions and outlook on the world unfortunately happen to line up a little too closely with Alpha's own, making her his perfect host. A city resident, she was afforded the rare luxury of living a relatively ordinary life within Ionios, a world where the existences of the vast majority of its inhabitants are anything but. However, while being shielded from the horrors of a world outside the walls was undeniably a gift, no, this isn't Attack on Titan, it also had deep-rooted, detrimental effects on Nael, in that she remained blind to the suffering of the soldiers forced to fight. Without substantial first-hand experience of their plight, I feel there's very much a side to her character that was thus unable to sympathise with it, perhaps even unwilling to fully believe everything she was told about that other side of the world was even true in the first place. Surely it couldn't be that terrible out there. Moreover, thinking in this way was dreadfully uncomfortable and even unnecessary. Their supposed suffering is a whole world away, so why should she give a damn? Why should they ruin her peace? Why should her and her people bother risking their own safety by attempting to free those stuck in Ionios' twisted cycle if it doesn't affect them? No, it's better to bury your head further in the sand, neglecting any such possibility. That's Nael's mindset, and it's one that would be simultaneously challenged, verified, and ultimately pushed to its extreme within the events of Future Redeem's story. Let's go through these three, one by one. First, Nael's outlook on the world can be seen as being, in her mind, verified through this moment. Here, she comes face to face with an unspeakable scene. Many of the city's children that she cared for, as if they were her own and loved more than anything else in the world, had been brutally murdered by stray Kavezi soldiers seeking a means to feed their draining flame clock. And these are the people they should be saving. This is the humanity that deserves to live alongside them. Ordinary people, not Mobius, were the ones who did this. Nael's voice actor here, another reason I so adore her character, does a superb job at bringing these innermost feelings to life in this genuinely really impactful moment. You can entirely understand why she's feeling this way. Next, Nael's views are challenged during this, again, brilliantly acted argument with her brother, Matthew. Her situation is surely worsened by the fact that she finds herself standing in staunch opposition to not only the city's people today, but her very legacy, her ancestors, some of the ones who were most motivated of all to free the soldiers of Keves and Agnes, Noah and Mio. You can really understand the struggle she's going through, and how much weight is upon her shoulders. Is she betraying the will of her very bloodline? And if so, should that really affect her decisions, or does it make her a monster? Because in her mind, as expressed in this scene, Matthew and others like him are simply blinded by unrealistic optimism. The hollow hope that they can somehow make a world in which both the city's residents and the soldiers can live hand in hand, a future her recent experience has just solidified as impossible. For her, at the end of the day, the core dilemma here is us or them. Finally, the chance emergence of an external party, Alpha, allows Nael's all too fitting ideals to reach their extreme. Her isolationist mentality makes her quite literally the perfect host for Alpha, an entity who wishes to erase away Keves, Agnes and Mobius, the outdated, pitiful facets of humanity, preserving only the city people, the foundations with which he can craft an entirely new world. Of course, you can make the argument that everything done and said by Nael here doesn't have any real bearing on her character, as it was all just Alpha's doing, but I'm not sure I entirely agree. Sure, she likely wouldn't have acted with as much malice and determination as we see her doing had she not been under his influence, but I would argue that Alpha, just like Malos in the case of Amalthus, could also be seen as a medium by which Nael's true feelings could come to the surface the most prominently. It's evident in how she takes like a moth to a flame to his plan to make a new world, in the scenes within the Origin flashback, regardless of the catastrophic loss of life doing so would cause. She simply doesn't care, because it isn't her. Selfish? Most definitely. Relatable? Perhaps troublingly so. Look, nobody, at least I hope not, is gonna argue what Alpha is doing here is morally right, but the core principle at the center of Nael's belief system is perhaps frustratingly common among all of us. There is a small part of all of us, no matter how much we try to bury it, and even I won't deny I'm guilty of it too, that looks at all manner of tragedies happening in remote parts of the world from our own, and first breathes a sigh of relief, not sympathy, that it's not happening to us. The way in which Nael's character expresses this unfortunate tendency is why she's so brilliant, and it has somewhat saddened me to see her largely be ignored or even disliked by the wider fandom. I've also seen some say that they thought our character had potential, but she didn't receive enough screen time to fully reach it, and that's something I've again simply got to disagree with. Sure, she didn't get heaps of screen time, but honestly I think she got the perfect amount, exactly what was necessary to flesh out her character. What do you all think? Are these underrated characters actually not as amazing as I argue, and actually deserving of their lack of praise? Or have I even left out a couple characters from the conversation that are even more overlooked than these three? Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!